The morning bell echoed through the hallways of Crestwood Middle School, a sound that for most meant chatter, laughter, and friendship. For Ethan Miller, it meant the beginning of another day of silence. He walked with his head lowered, clutching the straps of his faded blue backpack, his shoes scraping lightly against the polished floor. His small frame seemed to disappear between the crowds of louder, brighter kids who never noticed him, except when they did, and their attention came with whispers and mocking smiles. Ethan was 12, but his eyes carried something older, the quiet ache of someone who had learned too early that the world could be unkind. He stuttered when he spoke, and every word that got stuck in his throat became another reason for others to laugh. Each taunt carved invisible scars that no one saw, not even the teachers who told him to speak up. He often sat alone at lunch, staring out the window as the other boys traded jokes and dreams. Inside, a storm raged, one made of words he couldn't say, and melodies he didn't dare to share. Because Ethan had a secret, a voice that could reach into the deepest corners of the heart. But he never sang when anyone could hear. At home, in his small room with walls lined with old posters and drawings, Ethan would sit by the window each night. When the world went quiet, he would sing, softly, almost as if afraid the sound would break. His voice carried the pain of loneliness and the hope of something he didn't yet understand. The moonlight would catch on his face, revealing tears that came without warning, tears that felt both heavy and freeing. Some nights, his mother, Claire, would pause outside his door, listening. She never interrupted. She knew that her son's songs were the only place he didn't stutter, the only place his heart spoke freely. And yet, the world outside remained blind to it all. No one at school, no one in town, no one on earth knew that this quiet boy carried inside him something extraordinary, something that could one day bring even the coldest hearts to tears. The story begins with a question. What if the one the world ignored had the power to make it cry? Days passed like pages of a book Ethan never wanted to read. Routine, lonely, and painfully quiet. School was a place of endurance, not belonging. He kept to himself, moving through the corridors like a shadow that no one noticed. But life, as it often does, had its own silent plans. One rainy afternoon, the sky poured over the school grounds, forcing everyone to stay indoors. Ethan wandered to the old music room, a place where dust and forgotten instruments slept under a thin sheet of time. It was his refuge, the one place where noise became comfort. He sat at the piano, pressing a single key. The soft note lingered in the empty air, and before he realized it, his lips parted. He began to sing. His voice trembled at first, uncertain, like a bird afraid to take flight. But as the melody grew, it carried something raw, a depth that only those who had known loneliness could express. His tone was gentle but powerful, rising like a wave, breaking into emotion that even he didn't understand. Outside the door, Mr. Lopez, the school's music teacher, paused mid-step. He had stayed back to organize sheets for the choir students, but the sound stopped him cold. It wasn't just beautiful. It was heartbreaking. He quietly pushed open the door and saw Ethan, eyes closed, completely lost in the music. For a long moment, Mr. Lopez simply listened, stunned, moved, and unsure if what he was hearing was real. When Ethan finished, he turned, startled, realizing he wasn't alone. His face flushed with embarrassment, ready for mockery. But what he saw in Mr. Lopez's eyes wasn't laughter. It was awe. Mr. Lopez didn't scold or question. He simply smiled softly, placing a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. That small gesture, gentle, wordless, said more than any applause could. For the first time, Ethan felt seen. That evening, as he walked home in the drizzle, something inside him shifted. The world had always been heavy, but now it felt a little lighter, like the rain was washing away years of silence. At home, when his mother asked why he was smiling, Ethan didn't answer. He just looked out the window and whispered to himself, almost in disbelief. Maybe his voice wasn't just his secret anymore. He didn't know it yet, but that single song in an empty classroom had set into motion a journey that would soon carry his voice far beyond those school walls. The morning of the audition arrived with a strange mix of silence and chaos. The streets of Los Angeles shimmered under the bright sun, but inside Ethan's heart, a storm raged. His small hands trembled as he clutched the audition card, the words "America's Got Talent" printed in bold. Surreal. Unreal. Like a dream that didn't belong to him. Claire walked beside him, her tired eyes filled with pride and worry. She had seen her son's fears, his years of being unseen, and yet here he was, standing at the doorstep of a world stage. She didn't need to say anything. Her hand on his shoulder was enough, a silent reminder that courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means walking forward despite it. Backstage, the air was filled with nervous laughter and whispered rehearsals. Ethan stood quietly among dancers, magicians, and singers, all older, louder, and more confident. His name was finally called. His knees weakened as he stepped into the blinding light of the stage. Before him, the vast theater stretched endlessly. The 4 judges sat under a glow of white light, the crowd beyond them humming with curiosity. Thousands of eyes fixed on a boy who could barely meet their gaze. The microphone stood like a giant before him. For a second, he wanted to run, to turn back, to escape into the safety of silence. Then, somewhere in the distance of his mind, he heard Mr. Lopez's voice, his mother's encouragement, and the faint echo of the songs he sang in the dark. He closed his eyes. The music began. At first, his voice was soft, fragile as glass, but with every note it grew, reaching places he never thought he could reach. The audience quieted, leaning forward as if afraid to breathe. His voice carried his pain, his memories, the years of ridicule, and the hope that maybe he was enough. Every lyric trembled with honesty. Every rise and fall felt like a heartbeat reborn. When the final note faded, silence filled the room. The kind of silence that feels holy. And then, one by one, people stood. The crowd erupted. Tears shone in the judge's eyes. Even Simon Cowell, the man known for his steel heart, looked away, blinking back emotion. Ethan stood still, overwhelmed, trembling. A boy who once couldn't speak without stuttering had just silenced a world with his song. For a long, breathless moment, the stage remained still. Just Ethan standing there, his chest rising and falling, his heart echoing louder than the applause that had yet to come. Then, suddenly, the theater exploded into sound. The crowd rose to their feet in a wave of thunderous clapping, whistles, and cheers that seemed to shake the air itself. Ethan blinked through the bright stage lights, tears blurring his vision. He saw faces, strangers, crying, smiling, calling his name. It felt unreal, like a dream he was scared to wake up from. He looked at the judges' table. Each of them was moved in a way no one expected. The woman on the end covered her mouth, her eyes wet. One judge nodded slowly, whispering something to the others. Then, in an instant that would replay across the world, a hand rose and came down on the golden buzzer. The sound rang out like a heartbeat. Gold confetti burst from above, raining down in a shimmering storm. Ethan gasped as the glitter fell over him, the golden lights surrounding him like a warm embrace from the universe itself. The audience screamed louder, some holding their hearts, some simply watching in awe. Claire stood backstage, her hands covering her face, tears streaming freely. Years of watching her son hide, of hearing him cry softly into his pillow, of wishing the world could see what she saw. All of it came pouring out in that one golden moment. Mr. Lopez was there too, standing beside her. His eyes glistened, his hand pressed against his chest, proud and speechless. He had once found Ethan singing alone in an empty room. Now the whole world was hearing him. As the confetti fell, Ethan slowly looked up, his face lit by gold and disbelief. He wasn't invisible anymore. He wasn't the quiet boy in the back row or the target of cruel jokes. He was a singer, one whose voice had reached hearts, broken walls, and brought people to tears. The judges stood and clapped, the crowd chanting his name. Cameras flashed. The world was watching. But for Ethan, in that exact moment, none of it mattered. He wasn't singing for fame. He was singing for every version of himself that had once been afraid to speak. And now, finally, the silence that had once trapped him had turned into music that would never fade. Weeks passed, but the echoes of that golden moment never faded. The video of Ethan's audition flooded the internet, shared by millions across the world. Headlines called him